Hello, Happy New Year, Happy 2012. It's actually here. I'm excited about 2012. I don't know about you. Forget the Mayan calendar kind of stuff. It just feels like a good year, 2012. And I'm Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. You might have known me before from My Astro Chris with a lot of my on-the-spot astrology readings. But today what I'm going to do is give you the Happy New Year forecast, the 2012 forecast. And so when we talk about 2012, of course, people want to talk about the Mayan calendar and December 21st, 2012 being the perceived end date of that calendar. But whether or not you agree with the start date of the Mayan calendar would change that end date. And people ask me all the time from an astrological perspective, what is the big alignment coming up on December 21st, 2012? And my response is pretty much, there's nothing spectacular about the specific alignments on December 21st, 2012. Yes, there are some general alignments that we've been in for years, that will be in for years on a galactic kind of scale, but there's nothing specific to December 21st, 2012. Plenty of other dates would be more astrologically significant. So this has nothing to do with any kind of alignments in that respect. However, 2012 is a very busy year for big aspects in astrology, all right? Nothing that portends the end of times, unfortunately for some who really hope that this is true. In fact, there's just a lot of big, deep changes on a grand or great worldwide scale that we're already starting to see the beginnings of, okay? And so why don't I get right into the start of 2012 here today, January 1st, 2012. And as we move in the next couple of months, January, February, March, there's a few events that are happening. One in particular is the movement of the planet Neptune into Pisces for good. And when I say for good, I mean that Neptune actually entered Pisces for 4 months back in 2011, early April to early August. But now here on February 3rd, 2012, Neptune is going to actually enter Pisces and be there for about 14 years. So we're talking 2026 by the time Neptune is finished with Pisces. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. With Neptune in Aquarius, we had that since the late 1990s, mid to late 1990s. So this has been a time when you blend the Neptune and the Aquarian energy of, from the way I see it, this sort of detached connection, okay? Detachment with the Aquarian energy and the connection, the oneness of Neptune, okay? And this came through with all that reality TV that came to us, Survivor right around the turn of the millennium there. Also, all these, almost everything's a reality show now, okay? And with social media. So everyone is connecting, everyone is quote unquote famous. We all have our pages, we all have our way of getting out there now, which didn't exist when Neptune and Aquarius started. It really didn't, to be seen, known, heard, you really had to be somebody, okay? Now anybody, who's anybody, hello, I'm putting a video on YouTube right now with my astrological take on the year. Oh, well, anybody can do this, and it's a wonderful thing that we've found a way for everyone to connect, but through detached modes, okay, like this. With Neptune in Pisces, this is going to set off, a decade and a half of real true connection, a real true oneness, a real true sense of, we can't hide from the truth, I guess is a good way to put it. The last time Neptune was in Pisces, which is in the mid-19th century, this is actually when, for example, the whole idea of Christmas that we celebrate now really came to fruition. And what I mean by that is the whole image of Santa Claus, as we know it today, came through there. And imagery is very, very important for Neptune in Pisces. And you notice with the Occupy movement, for example, at the end of 2011 here, it's a lot of those photos, just photos of people being pepper sprayed, photos of people holding these signs. This is starting to really impact people. They're seeing things in ways they haven't seen before. And of course, many people say, oh, who cares about the Occupy movement? It's just a blip on the screen, blip on the radar. But I'm here to tell you, from an astrological perspective, when this started in late 2011, if it's any indication, let's just say that if a hurricane is on the way, all we've experienced so far are the initial sprinkles and a couple of breezes. That's about it. The hurricane, a whole lot behind where that came from. So It's just begun, that movement itself, okay? And that kind of leads me into the next kind of grouping of significant configurations coming up. Pluto and the planet Jupiter started forming a trine back in the summer of 2011, okay? And this kind of moved itself all the way till now, and it will peak again for the last time in March of 2012. At that time, there's actually going to be another couple of planets in mid-March. Mars will actually complete a grand trine with that Jupiter-Pluto trine, and then Venus is going to be connecting with Jupiter at the same time. I'm really psyched about it because my birthday is in mid-March, and so this will be in my solar return chart, which is a chart for your birthday that we won't get into here, but I'm pretty excited about it. And from a collective standpoint, with this Jupiter-Pluto-Mars trine with Venus thrown in the mix, this is a time, especially with Mars in Virgo, and we'll get to Mars next, and what Mars is doing. You know, Virgo is all about the tangibility, getting things done, and Jupiter and Pluto will be in other Earth signs of Capricorn and Taurus, okay? And so all these Earth signs is all about real tangibility. So the question marks for these, you know, occupiers, for example, has always been, well, what is their plan? You know, what do they expect? What's the alternative, you know? And I think we're going to start seeing this once we get to the spring here of 2012, especially mid-March, and then in mid-April, when Mars goes direct, because it will be going retrograde, as I'll mention in a second. This is when things really start moving forward in concrete ways, okay? So it's more, you know, up in the air and just getting attention and getting people's, you know, minds in order. But I think something tangible is going to come of this. And when we get to June of 2012, this is going to be the most significant month of the year, bar none. June 2012, and we'll get back to that in just a second. But talking about that Mars in Virgo. So Mars is going to retrograde. So retrogrades are apparent motions that are moving backwards of different planets from our perspective on Earth. And during those times, astrologically, there's significance in terms of pulling back on those energies, okay? So Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year. We'll have 3 retrogrades in 2012. Nothing special about that. But Mars only retrogrades once every 2 years. And we have one coming up here in late January. So about January 23rd, Mars will start to retrograde in late Virgo. It will retrograde all the way back to the very beginning of Virgo by mid-April. And then in mid-April, it will go direct again. So this entire first half of 2012, when you include the shadow period of Mars, and when it actually enters that zone for the first time, when it finally exits, we're talking the whole first half of 2012. And it kind of already started here in the end of 2011. So people individually are really getting their stuff together over these next few months, this first half of the year. Really digging into the details and almost enjoying the details. A lot of vigorous energy into those details. This is why, relative to the Occupy movement, for example, we're going to be talking about specifics, not just generalities anymore, okay? And it will take to the end of the cycle around March, April timeframe when this finally kind of comes to fruition, okay? But personally, you know, this would be a time where a lot of people are rethinking their career aims, rethinking their ambitions, and resetting their footing in a lot of ways. And that's a lot of what this is about, because Mars is our action planet, how we go about, how we do in the world. And we're all kind of pulling back saying, you know, what I've been doing, how has this helped me and how has it hurt me? How can I do it differently, okay? And so this is the main purpose of this Mars retrograde in Virgo, all right? And so that's a lot of the stuff that's happening early on in the year. And like I said, that mid-March time period, there's something about a culmination that happens around that point relative to what's been growing since the second half of 2011. And one of those things that's been growing is, for example, there's in the alternative health field, lots of alternative health mechanisms like acupuncture, for example, scientific studies showing how and why it works. Other kinds of things like yoga and how it really does scientifically improve health, okay? And mixing these things in with what have been, till now, conventional practices of medicine, okay? And so this integrative medicine approach and how this has kind of rapidly come to fruition. I feel like there'll be some kind of peak with that in March, in my opinion, okay? Because of what has grown out of the late part of 2011. And so as we get through this spring, you know, like I said, April, things will start to kind of jump forward. There'll be a Mercury retrograde mid-March to early April. I feel like that's going to be the bridge point, okay? So between now, January 1st, and about mid-March, there's just a lot of building going on with Mars going retrograde. Neptune entering Pisces, we're going to enter this another realm of imagery being very important. Okay. Also, it'll be the first time that Neptune is in Pisces during the cinema and television era, because Neptune has a lot to do with cinema and television. Okay, so there's a sense, in my opinion, that any kind of important movements are going to really start, making it to the cinemas, making it to the TVs, getting out there at, in the highest degree of the term, really getting out there, really being seen by everyone. Okay, or almost everyone. All right. So that's a big, big deal, I think, the beginning part is transitioning into that. But that's not going to go anywhere for, again, over a decade. That's just going to kind of build on itself. But we're going to start really seeing that coming more into play as February starts, okay? In a more sense of the masses really being connected as one, all right? And, it sounds like a lot of hooky kind of stuff, but really, it's a real sense of people feeling their connectedness a little bit more than we have lately, okay? As we get through the spring and we reach about May, this is when the planet Venus will go retrograde. So we have 3 retrogrades of Mercury this year. We have a retrograde of Mars that only happens once every 2 years. And we have a retrograde of Venus, which only happens about once every 18 months. And this retrograde of Venus is a very, very special one. Every once in a while, about 120 years or so, okay, Venus will actually cross the sun exactly. So it's like an eclipse when the moon crosses the sun. We can't see it because Venus, relative to our position, looks really tiny compared to the sun. So you don't notice it. It's not an eclipse that you'll notice. However, Venus will cross right over the sun. Okay? And this will happen in early June. But the retrograde of Venus will start in mid-May. It'll end about late June. And the midpoint of that retrograde is in early June. And that's when this, what's called an occultation, which is just like an eclipse. Okay? But it's pretty much when the Venus isn't across the sun. The last time this happened was in early June of 2004. You might think, well, I thought you said 120 years. Well, it happens in groups of 2, 8 years apart, every 120 years. The last group of 2 happened in 1874 and 1882. So it has been a while since the last group. What this signifies, what's really interesting is people talk about the Mayans. Here they come up again. The Mayans don't have it written anywhere that December 21st, 2012 is some important date. It just happens to be, again, if you subscribe to the certain beginning date of the calendars, this becomes a significant ending date or recalibration date, however you look at it. Okay, but this early June Venus occultation was specifically spelled out by the Mayans as a very important time of kind of global awareness, consciousness awareness. Okay, so there's something about the truth really being illuminated, and these Venus-Sun connections that happen every 120 years or so, they really have a lot more to do with the feminine, the divine feminine aspect of receiving and of allowing those kind of energies that are less direct and masculine in their approach, and it's also a time when the world kind of ups the ante in terms of its connection, that divine feminine connection. Just to give you an example of the last round, the 1874-1882. Well, before that round, if you wanted to talk to someone, you had to either, do telegraph, which, tapping your fingers and they could maybe have something typed out for them, if someone knew Morse code, for example, or you could write a letter that would get to them in, 3 months. But when we got out of that period, guess what was invented? The telephone. All right. Suddenly, connection was a whole lot easier. The sense of being in all places at once, right? So take that energy, now take it with our current technology. As if we don't already have this awareness of being everywhere at once ups the ante again here. And so when we pass June 2012, we're on the other side of this again. So this is really a significant time, when it comes to the feminine in our society, not just females, but, males and females practicing the feminine. Things like yoga, a very feminine, approach to medicine. Instead of attacking the enemy, finding the virus, finding the bacteria, and going in on the attack, it's a very masculine approach. We have some more feminine approaches, which is kind of almost welcoming the sickness. And I'm not going to get into how this all kind of works, but a lot of the research is suggesting that, it's our resistance to these, our resistance itself that is the disease, that is the dis-ease in our bodies. Okay, and so there are methods of working through what's perceived as illness. Again, won't get too deep into that, but I suspect June 2012, Venus occultation of the sun to really kick off some things, and that's not the only thing happening in June of 2012, because one biggie that happens in June 2012 is the square between Uranus and Pluto. Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn. All right, Pluto and Uranus conjuncted each other. They were together in the same position of the sky back in the mid to late 1960s, about right around the times of the assassinations of MLK and Kennedy's brother, and all the civil rights movements and all the violence and all that. There was global upheaval on a societal level, okay? And that's what Pluto and Uranus represent together. Pluto is this deep truth and transformation into this truth, an actualization of the truth, and the planet Uranus being, society in general, and change, big changes, and so when you mix those together, you get these potentially violent upheavals. And so people have, memories of the 1960s. I don't, I wasn't born yet, but people that do think, wow, whatever happened there? Everyone was so, on a tangent going forward. Whatever happened to the protests and the awareness of global domination, these kind of issues? And, it's really interesting is, well, guess what? It is coming back. And this waxing square between Uranus and Pluto, because Uranus moves a little bit faster than Pluto, is going to start the very first square of 7 squares to occur over the next 3 years. Okay, so from June 2012 to about April of 2015, we have this Uranus-Pluto square thing going on. This is a very, very exciting development. Okay, and this is part of the reason why I think this Occupy movement is not going anywhere, because in fact Pluto and Uranus came pretty damn close to an exact square in September of 2011. All right, and what happened? What started in September of 2011? This is the Occupy movement itself. Okay, and so that was a preview of what this time period, this Pluto-Uranus time period, is going to be about. It's going to be about this. I can hear the song in my head right now. We're not going to take it. Twisted Sister. We're not going to take it. And all that energy from the 1960s suddenly comes back. And there's a lot more of us now. When we talk about this 99%, 1%, whatever it is, if there is a global elite that's kind of siphoning off of the rest of us, well, the rest of us have grown a whole lot bigger, a whole lot smarter, and a whole lot more connected than we were in the 1960s. And so this is why the rapidity or the rapidness of this, I expect it to be pretty outrageous, to say the least. And this, again, June 2012. I imagine this happening in conjunction with the Venus occultation. Some kind of global awareness, some kind of global consciousness awareness. Is it aliens coming down and introducing themselves to us? Who knows? I don't know. But the idea is something huge in 2012, especially June of 2012. Not so much December, but June of 2012. This is a transition point. Okay, and I see it. I've been seeing a lot of people's individual charts. Looking at 2012, and it looks like a lot of preparation and work the first half, and then suddenly things start moving forward in the second half. I don't know what this is. I just see what I see. And there's something about almost like getting on with it by the second half of 2012. Enough with the hiding, enough with the lies, enough with, we're not that dumb, okay? And so that's going on at that point too. So there's a lot of things to look out for in 2012, and I can't cover everything in this video, but I just wanted to highlight some of the most important aspects. Okay, and now I want to talk about the fall of 2012, because there's some things going on around that time too. We have an election in the United States in 2012, early November. Okay, I talked about the Mercury retrogrades happening 3 times a year. Well, one of those Mercury retrogrades happens to begin or initiate right on election day this year. And if you know anything about Mercury retrograde, this is all about redo, rethink, reanalyze, reorganize, re-everything. Well, the only other time that Mercury either stationed direct or stationed retrograde, in other words, started a retrograde or ended a retrograde on an election day, the only other time in U.S. history was election of 2000, which we all remember George W. versus Al Gore, and the recount, okay, there's the word re. So there's your Mercury retrograde. And we all know what kind of a mess that was. Expect something like that this election, okay? With all the truth that will be coming out in the middle part of 2012. Do not expect for a minute that we will be putting up with any kind of attempts to falsely approach the election as though it's been done fairly. Okay, there's going to be ways. I feel like there's going to be ways, connections. People are going to know if there was someone messing with the results, and it could get out big and it could get out huge. And I have a feeling it's going to have something to do with the Electoral College, some kind of sense where we have Ron Paul this year who could pose that threat of taking electoral votes away from the two main party candidates that we'll have. So there could be an awakening where we understand that this electoral college that was designed for our benefit 200 and whatever years ago doesn't really benefit us anymore, especially if we're all super connected. And this method of voting, with pushing pins and things like that, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way to be more fair, more inclusive. And why can't every vote count? Why can't just because the rest of your state doesn't want what you want, why can't your vote count for what you're really voting for, which is a U.S. president? Okay, we're not voting for a state president or a state governor. Sorry, we're voting for a U.S. president. So why can't your vote count? So I feel like it's gonna be something like that, but expect a very unsmooth election for sure in November. Okay, and so there are other things going on that I don't want to get to, but this one last piece, okay? People always ask me about the age of Aquarius, oh, we're entering the age of Aquarius. And honestly, I mean, yes, it is true that, from an astronomical perspective, yes, that what we say the age of Aquarius, yes, there is that location of the sky where our Earth is aligning more and more with out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. This is true. But the line of demarcation is not very solid. It's a gradual change process. And in my opinion, this process started back in the mid-18th century. Yeah, the mid-1700s, in other words. This is when the Industrial Revolution started. This is the Aquarian starting to come into play, the science, okay? Because Aquarius has a lot to do with science, has a lot to do with technology, okay? And I feel like the overlap is not going to be over for another couple hundred years. So we're in it, sure. But to say that like December 21st, 2012, or 11/11/11, or whatever people have been shouting out there as the beginning of the age of Aquarius, that suggests that there is a line of demarcation that says this is the end of Pisces, the beginning of Aquarius. It's just not true, okay? So let me get that out there. There is a line of demarcation, though, that right as we speak, and it's a little unclear as exactly when that was. I've heard November of 2011. I've also heard sometime in 2012. Either way, we're within months of this transition. And this is a transition of the fixed star Regulus. You might not have heard of Regulus. It's a fixed star that has been in the tropical zodiac of Leo for over 2,000 years, going back to about 100 and something BC, okay? And it is entering Virgo. That fixed star is going to be entering Virgo relative to our position right here. Again, November 2011, or is it 2012? What difference does it make? It's happening. We're transitioning. And this is a big, big deal. Bigger deal than anything I've talked about so far, okay? And I can write, I can do a whole book on this. But I just want to introduce this concept to you so you can understand how things are changing, okay? When it comes to these signs, there's 30 degrees in each sign. When any kind of planet or star, if I see a chart where someone has the 29th degree of a sign that's highlighted, like their rising sign, the 29th degree of Virgo, for example, that would indicate someone who's got an extra urge to put out this mask or this essence about themselves that says, I'm organized, I'm disciplined, etc. Okay, more so than just someone with the Virgo mask in general. Okay, so the 29th degree just ups the ante. It really does, just makes things more intense. Okay. And I just wanted to say that because that fixed star, Regulus, has been at the 29th degree of Leo since the late 1930s. Again, it takes 2,100 years or so to go through the 30 degrees, so each degree is like 70 plus years of time. And so this started back in the late 1930s. And you might be thinking, okay, late 1930s, what's going on there? So basically, since the late 1930s until now, this fixed star has been in the 29th degree of Leo, and Leo is all about, kind of self-based power. It's all about, king and queen kind of energy, the oligarchies and all of that kind of energy is very Leonian, okay? It's might is right, war because I said so, follow my rules because I said so, because I am so, really is what it comes down to. It's like that, the roar of the lion. It's like, if the lion says it, then it must be true, And so this is the kind of mentality that we've been living in. And so Regulus, what Regulus actually represents, is the power structure. And so we're talking about a power structure in that Leonian form. For the last 2,000 years, we had a power structure that has that kind of might is right because I said so kind of approach. All right, and the Roman Empire did start right at the beginning of this. All right, and everything since then has been all about the same kind of super masculine approach to power. And what I tell you about the Venus occultation of the sun, well, represents that another ante up for the feminine. Well, with Regulus entering Virgo, we're talking about entering a feminine sign. One that is all about the earth and its resources. One that is all about health, okay? Doing the right things for health. Okay, so we have all these issues about healthcare right now. So I'll go on to that in just a second. But to bring back the case of the 29th degree of Leo, what have we experienced since the late 1930s? First of all, Hitler, World War II, the atom bomb. I mean, almost as soon as it hit the 29th degree of Leo, we were talking about super Leonian power structures, okay? And then we have communism growing. And we have, McCarthyism at the same time, as a reflection of that. There was a real sense of overpowering, okay? That started to come on here. Even look at sports. Sports is a very Leonian expression, okay? And nothing against sports. I like sports myself. But look at how much it's grown in terms of almost like these old Roman Empire, kind of venues, etc. People used to like sports before Regulus hit the 29th degree of Leo in the late 1930s, but it wasn't as crazy as it is now. It wasn't as intense. It wasn't as over the top where people are actually strangling their daughters, like a Green Bay Packers fan did not too long ago here. Just, again, we're getting images and information about what's wrong with sports right now, what's wrong with the fan bases and how crazy it is. Also, someone with a brain tumor got hit in the head at a hockey game in Northern California, a Canucks fan. So it's kind of, it's all over the place here. We're seeing, is it really worth it to be that crazy about our sports teams, And then look at the sports players themselves making millions of dollars. Where's the cap on that? We're talking about the 99%ers, the 1%ers. Well, what about the, the guy sitting on the bench with an injured elbow who's in contract for $15 million this year? There's something about worshiping, I guess, these athletes and whatnot. And look at cage fighting, ultimate fighting, and all that. I often hear the argument for ultimate fighting. Oh, it's martial arts. It's a skill. I mean, I don't disagree with that. It's a huge skill, something I can't do. I would be destroyed in one of those cages. But martial arts, let's face it, was invented for self-defense. It wasn't invented for cockfighting between humans. And so that's the big difference to me. We just basically, we've come to the point here, the very end of this Regulus in Leo, of how bad can it get? Well, here's how bad it can get. People strangling their daughters because their team lost, and people cheering on someone using very intense martial arts for offense and not defense in a cage. I think we've hit rock bottom. And so this transition into Virgo isn't going to happen overnight. Obviously, this sense of the whole society changing to a more feminine aspect. However, expect over the next couple of generations for this to occur. I expect in 2 generations, when I'm a grandpa, I expect my grandchildren to say, why did people do that? In reference to certain things that we take for granted now. In reference to things like, again, these sports, but also how much we worship movie stars and actors and things like that. With this transition of Neptune and Aquarius the last 15 years or so, we've seen that almost anybody can be famous. Again, reality TV. Everybody has a story. Anybody can go on the web. Okay? Everybody has a Facebook page. no matter who you are, you can connect to these people who were once so far and separate from you, okay? So there's an awakening here that, there's nothing super special, and again, Leo is all about specialness. There's nothing super special about anything or anyone that I can't be, okay? That I have something to give. So what does Regulus in Virgo look like then? What does Regulus power structures in a feminine sign like Virgo look like? Well, again, Virgo, it is all about what makes sense, not about I said so. It's more like I said so because this is why. Real explanations, a real sense of people really understanding why the rules are what they are. Okay? And not just, it always has been, I've always been told so, therefore it is so, but a real sense of, oh, we get it. And we also understand when it will need to be changed to better reflect what is. Okay? So Virgo is much more flexible, much more willing to be realistic. It's associated with the earth and its resources. So again, Leo is all about like, get me the gold and diamonds and whatever it takes, take it away from whoever you need to take it away from and give it to me. That's the energy of that power structure. So someone like Hitler taking over countries and whatnot in the very beginning of that, that's part of that energy. But in Virgo, it's more like, well, there's starving people, there's a lot of food here, why aren't we putting food over there? There's a lot of those kind of things. It's not communism. That's the scare under Regulus and Leo. That's the power abuse scare, communism. But there is a sense of people just understanding how to distribute resources in a more efficient and fair kind of way. And I don't purport to know what exactly that is, but I think we'll figure it out here with Regulus in Virgo. Okay, something that next couple of generations we'll see it build quickly, not overnight, but it will be relatively rapid. Within the lifetimes of people like say my age, 30-ish plus or minus. We're going to see this before we die. Assuming we live to old age. This is happening. This transition is happening. Also, health, like I said, health is no longer going to be part of the power structure, like the Leo power structure, which doctors and nurses who really want to help patients, which I really feel like they do, can finally actually do it. I feel like that's what's going to happen. Let's put the patient first. Let's not put the structure of the pharmaceutical demands first, which is where we are now. The ridiculousness of seeing the pharmaceutical ads on TV with all the side effects and basically convincing you that you're sick from the beginning of that commercial. Are you tired? Do you get tired? Oh yeah, I get tired. Oh, do you have trouble sleeping? Oh, sometimes I have trouble sleeping. Who doesn't have these symptoms? People are going to their doctors and the doctors are saying, yeah, I'll prescribe that, and they have reasons to do that. They want to keep their job. And there's certain quotas and things they have to reach and everything else. So the point is, with Regulus entering Virgo, we can see the entire approach to health. And people who are in the health field really expanding. Okay, alternative healing, huge, because we are entering the age of Aquarius, which is again a sign related to alternatives and technologies and the blending of science and what has to this point been known as religion, but is really just philosophy. Okay, so understanding why ancient traditions practice certain ways of medicine and applying it now with modern technology. So the combination of a Virgo power structure with Regulus in Virgo and this Aquarian age, alternative medicine, which, well, it's alternative now, but what will become medicine very quickly here in the next few generations, this is going to be big. So I feel like anyone in the natural medicine fields, alternative medicine fields, there's going to be lots of demand for this coming out, wellness and things of that nature. So also things like I'm doing here with astrology, a real renewal of the practical application of it. Understanding, we don't have to know how it works to apply it. We just have to know that it works, right? Same with gravity. We don't know what it is, why it's there, but we respect it, don't we? We respect gravity. We don't think, well, if I don't understand it, well, it doesn't really exist. No, we use it every day. In fact, if you have a cell phone, it's based on a satellite sending you a signal. That satellite is put in that position based on what we know about gravity, which isn't everything, okay? And so something like astrology, an alternative tool that gets a more practical recognition in the workforce, a real sense of people wanting to clean themselves up, to get aligned with where they're headed, get aligned, not just go for the kill, but really be in alignment with their true philosophy, their true self, and whatever that is, on a personal level, business level, and on a national level, okay? So, lots of information, I know. I think 2012 is pretty exciting, like I talked about, all the aspects that are going on, but also this Regulus shift, big time. And this is beyond 2012. This is more of a shift of anything before 2012 to anything after it. Okay, and so to me, forget the Mayan calendar. This is a shifting time period, and forget about any specific dates. Like I said, June 2012 looks quite potent, but I wouldn't finger any date in there. Just know that, as of July or August of 2012, looking back, we'll see that it was pretty significant. Okay, but this is a pretty big year. It really is. I don't want to downplay it, but I don't think it's the end of the world either. So I'm really excited about 2012. I think it's going to be great, and I'm really excited for everyone that I've been seeing for personal consultations and now for business consultations that I've just started up here with Sovereign Harmony. And I look forward to speaking with you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to get your feedback. So again, my name is Christopher Robert Taylor of Sovereign Harmony, and Happy New Year, Happy 2012, and I'll be signing off. Thanks a lot.